And you can't do anything with that. He said they're out there playing rock and roll.
Hi, Charlie, baby!
Giant phallic symbol pointing at you. All my latent tendencies are just...
J is for Justice podcast.
Roberta.
Or something, but he introduces him incorrectly. He introduces him as somebody who just went to visit Manson and wanted to write a book. But they go way back, and you'll learn that as we watch this. Pay close attention, you guys. This is a fascinating interview. I know, peer pressure, Laura. I fell to the peer pressure.
And he's here this evening to discuss the interview and help us understand what is going on in the mind of Charles Manson. Before that, Mr. Emmons, could you just briefly trace your relationship with Charles Manson? Where did you meet him and how did you develop a relationship with him?
Well, I've had a similar childhood as Manson, only unlike him with nobody, I did have people. So I met Manson in jail in the federal prison, I guess, at Terminal Island in the middle 56 or so. And so anyway, not that we lined up together, but I was a few years older than he, but I did know him and smaller. And again, we were both repeats, so then I ran into him again in McNeil Island years later, 59, I guess. And I came home in 63 and since have straightened out my life. And after the family was raised and whatever, I began a writing career, mostly journalistic stuff, sports and newspaper items.
How can we tell when Charles Manson is conning and when he's on track? I was mystified by this man, as you know.
Well, and prior to the interview, I think that he felt that the questioning line was going to be a little bit different. And I have a rapport with Manson where we talk almost as normal as you and I are talking right now. And I think when Manson...
I think that is absolutely fascinating. And I could see where you could easily talk with Manson, just like they're talking right now. But you can see this journalist is like totally able to sit down and have a conversation. He chose not to talk to Charlie in that manner. He chose not to respect him.
And is really unsure of himself, uneasy, he performs. And then also, but as far as conning, he does con, he pulls your leg to a certain extent, but if you've noticed, he did not lie. He evaded when he did not want to answer. So that's a con or a joke in a way. He plays games with people.
Have you and he discussed this evasiveness that surfaces in him from time to time? And is he more level when you're talking privately without cameras on than he was during this?
Oh, very definitely. You've got to remember, we say a year, or you said a year, but it began in August of 1979 when I first began and renewed our acquaintance. And at first he denied me. The book wasn't his ideal at all. He resents being a victim, as he told you in the interview in several places, that he didn't do the things and it didn't come down as said. I don't think, in essence, Manson denies that he's guilty of things and he knows that he belongs in jail. But the way it was convicted and came down, and in his mind, he has been served an injustice himself. But we have a very rational relationship. I mean, there are days when I don't gather any material, but I accept that and come back again another day.
Have you gotten him to the point where he has admitted or discussed any complicity or planning in the deaths of the people in Southern California? Or does he shy away from it, as he did here when we got into this lobby anchor?
Well, there again, in this interview, he says he referred to you as a prosecuting attorney. I mean, in his thought, well, some of the questioning line was very similar to a prosecuting attorney's line, so he rebelled against it immediately. And we have our moments of rebellion, but yes, but it's his version, and it is contradictory to Helter Skelter. I mean, not the deaths. I mean, they're there for everybody to see and to know that it happened. However, there are many, many circumstances that sort of destroys the motive and the image and everything that previous books have put out about him. And if I might go on, well, that's where my book is motivated. It isn't in defense of Manson. I say not in defense. I think in the first portion of it, I do reach a certain amount of sympathy, just illustrating a childhood and how he was unlike me. I had parents that cared, and I had a trade and probably a better understanding. I don't say that the people in jail raised me like he does, and he is a victim of that. But I lost my thoughts. You'll have to come back to me.
No, you were saying that your book is not intended to be a defense of Manson or an apologia for him, but that you understand him in terms of his upbringing without a family, and you're sympathetic towards that. But then I think probably you part company as his story develops. Right.
Thank you. And anyway, well, he, by his own admission, he doesn't want to be, and he himself has become a considerable victim of the images. And you also said on your Wednesday night mention of the show for Friday night that you didn't find a mystic person or someone with powers. Well, the book brings that out very clearly too, and I and Manson also resents those earlier publications, and he feels, and I feel also, and I bring it out in my book, that more injustice has been done
like ASMR.
Because of similar books. That particular book that we mentioned, Helter Skelter, has done more to create the image and the followers and everything that still persists.
Except that Helter Skelter just didn't come out of the blue. Vincent Bugliosi didn't make that up out of whole cloth. I mean, there was a lot of conversation that was tracked among the people involved in those killings where that thing kept coming out over and over again.
And none of it came out until Susan Atkins made her first confession. And then once heard, it's almost as Manson himself projects power of suggestion and so on. We've heard it before, and this is our best way out. And
do you think there's anything today, Newell, like a Manson cult? Does he get letters, to your knowledge, from people who see him as a cult leader or somebody that they would like to pattern themselves after?
Only after reading the books that have been written previously. And he does get letters. The institution will verify it, and I've been recipient of letters. When my first media release on Manson was, I guess, March of '81, and the paper I worked for, the Ukiah Journal, well, it naturally you don't give your own address, but I was a recipient of mail wanting to know how they could get in touch with Manson and so on, and other people's, other than the ones I got, right to the institution.
Have you ever gotten a letter from a purported Manson follower saying your book better be fair to him or else? Any threatening letters?
It's gone further than that. One particular letter to the Ukiah Journal was from Hawaii, so I answered it, what's your interest, what's your concern? And I ended up meeting the party that wrote the letter, and I answered it and so on. And a little pride, or a little, I won't say pride, but a little vanity in my writing and a potential book coming up. I mentioned where I was at and what I was trying to project. She says, you're the luckiest son of a gun in the world. Because she was prepared to waste me if I was going to be more detrimental to Manson than the previous books had been. Mm-hmm. So it is an easy role, and I'm doing it for Manson as well as for myself. And, well, there's a lot of things, because he says he's where he belongs in a sense.
Do you think he is?
Yes, I do think he is at this point, because he's probably bitter today than he was in '69 through the things that he's gone through.
Bill Lemons, thank you for being here in New York tonight. We're going back to Vacaville, California, and more with Charles Manson right after these announcements.
He is?
You know, you were sentenced to the gas chamber and then they modified the death penalty. Were you happy when that was done?
Was I happy when what was done?
When you found out that you weren't going to the gas chamber.
You're talking about dying. Now, it gets me nervous.
Why?
Did you have any thoughts about something? Was you wanting to go anywhere?
Were you happy when you found out you weren't going to go to the gas chamber, Charles?
I knew I wasn't going to go to the gas chamber because I hadn't done anything wrong.
You scared to die?
Sometimes I feel I'm scared to live. Living is what scares me. Dying is easy. Getting up every day and going through this again and again is hard. See, I'm carrying a heavy thought. See, the thought I'm carrying is very heavy. Like I'm on a football team and everybody's. And I'm a little guy. I don't have no home team. You got all the home. I got one cheerleader or one coach. See, you got me at a disadvantage because I'm on your ground. See. So, and this is your street, I reckon. You got the cameras and the money and the things. But you can believe me that Bully Ossie's had you all on a rib. And all them guys that sold you most of that stuff sold you a bunch of things that weren't real. Not to me. We used to have games we would play. On the movie set, we would take on different people. I'd be Riff Raff Rackus. And Steve would be John Jones, just come in from Minneapolis and driving the truck. And we'd just take other people and play act other people. And then we lost track of who we were. And it went off into other dimensions and levels of thought and understanding and comprehensions that were beyond most people's minds, functions, computers, data. So all I did was watch and learn everything I could from everybody I ever met. Then when I got out of prison, I just walked around. I didn't tell nobody to do nothing. I said, do what you want to do. Don't tell me what to do. I don't like people telling me what to do. They just come from a place where they told me what to do all my life. You know, I want to find out what to do for myself, you know. I never did. Not yet.
Thank you, Kelly.
But I was going to take a trade one of these days, maybe learn to be a welder or something. Till I can get to the front gate anyway.
I love the vintage graphics.
For people were killed. How did you get involved in that drama?
Well, I was born illegitimately. That put me on the other side of the law. I've been an outlaw ever since I was born. I went to reform school when I was about 10, and I learned to box and cry, and I learned to do all the things that you do in reform school. Then I escaped there a bunch of times, and I went to prison, and I learned everything that you do in prison. And I talked to all the guys and asked them everything they knew, and they told me all the things they knew. And then I went to the end of it, and then the old man would be ready to die, and he'd say, well, son, sincerity is the best gimmick, remember that. And I'd say, all right, be sincere, that'll win it. He said, that's it. Sincerity and honesty, he said, it'll do it. It'll trick them every time. I said, well, sincere and honesty, I never tried that. I tried everything else, but maybe I'll try sincere and honesty. So then I looked in the book, and it said, the wages of sin is death. Now I figured, well, I don't want to die, so maybe I have been sinful here. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'll take a look at my life and say, well, I'm going to change it and start all over. You know, and I know I go to God and I say, hey, man, you're going to forgive me? And he's going to say, what do? You forgive you? I mean, what'd you come to me for? Forgive yourself, man. Don't be bothering me. You know, and I think, well, he must be a big, mighty God, man. He just, you know, he ain't got time. You got to make an appointment or something, you know. So I see the whole aspect of the whole trip for children to play, you know. And then I get stuck in the game of playing the goat here, or the lamb, or the some other trip. I was a teddy bear, and then I was a goofball, and whatever. And what is the real one? Where's the real one? I don't know where the real one is. It's in a nut ward somewhere.
The real Charles Manson, hardly the glowering, sinister, and assertive mastermind that was pictured of his life before and after the Tate LaBianca killings in Los Angeles. The real Charles Manson appears to be confused and frightened. Confused, if you recall his admonition.
I don't care about this guy's opinion. Let's move into the next part, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. You guys pressured me, so
yay!
now you must
pressure is
stick
strong.
around. Okay, so this next part is, oh, you know what? It's shorter than I thought. This one's 30 minutes. So then we're done. So I'm glad I didn't stop, because that would have been really stupid.
Yeah, that's all. 30 minutes. That's not bad.
No,
not at all. This is perfect. Okay, this is the one. I have four pages of notes on this 30 minutes. Yikes, Ashley.
Whoa.
I know. Jay's going to be running her mouth.
When does it change?
So 2 hours, not 30
When
minutes.
you and Mel
Right.
write a book, what are you going to talk about? What are you going to try to bring out in your book?
I never even thought of anything like that. I'd have to give that some thought. I was doing this on Mel's request. He wanted to write the book. I don't particularly care to explain nothing to you. I don't look up at you for any reason to bring my report card home anymore. Does that make sense?
Well, no, what I'm trying to find out is, what would you like to bring out in the book that can teach other people?
What can you teach other people?
That's what I'd like to know. What do
Yeah.
you think you can teach other people?
That's what I'd like to know, too. I know how to be reborn and start all over. And start all over. I don't start all over with the same old. I just start all over. Even though I might be old, I'm still brand new every day because I do one day at a time, just like that old convict used to tell me. Isn't that what he used to say, Mel? One day at a time. So I've learned to live my life in one day at a time.
Is there anything you think you can pass on that society really is missing and that you can tell them about?
Society knows when it wants to know. There's just a jellyfish and is only controlled by the people who want to move the sheep around. They'll tell them anything. Everybody knows that everybody's lying. Do you know anyone that tells the truth? Can you trust a lawyer? Can't trust a lawyer. You can't trust. Who can you trust? The President, Nixon? The Watergate? Look at where your children are looking at it from. Who can they trust?
This right here blew my mind. Blew my freaking mind, because who can you trust? Very legitimate questions he has there that I think resonate with a lot of us, you know?
So you would try to tell parents something about raising children?
I would try to tell the children how to help the parent.
How?
By realizing that the parent is the child. Because he doesn't understand the child, but the child understands the parent. I've had talk with little kids, they just tell the truth. No lie in them.
What do you want to point out in the book if you bring that out? What would you like to point out?
You people are on your road going where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to stop from going where you're going, I'm not going to stop you. You know, you're going to your destruction, not mine. I've already established mine. You know, I've already went through mine. I've been judged. The judge gave me 9 life sentences.
But hold a minute. You really are. But in your philosophical talk, a lot of people won't, it'll go right over their heads. That's what I'm trying to say. Put it so they can understand it in lay language. Can we do that?
Well, it's sad all over, really. You know.
Okay, so that was like fake wiping of tears, or... Oh, skulls. Poopy.
Or just maybe he's hot in there and wiping sweat. I mean...
I just don't know if this is part of a performance.
I've been judged. The judge gave me 9 life sentences.
9 life sentences. I just can't even believe he wasn't even there. He wasn't even there. And he got 9 life sentences because they made him look crazy where nobody wanted him on the outside. I think 9 life sentences?
Yeah,
but
that's
we
pretty
got
harsh.
these people out here touching kids that get out on $1,000 bond. Make that make sense.
Right. Oh my God.
But hold a minute. You really are. But in your philosophical talk, a lot of people won't, it'll go right over their heads.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to say. Put it so they can understand it in lay language. Can we do that?
Well, it's sad all over, really. You know, it's hard for me to express how much sadness that I've went through to reach this point of understanding that I'm now talking to you from. How are you going to help somebody that don't want help? Hit them in the head and make them do it?
Will your book do that? Will you try?
Will I try?
To explain that.
Will I try to help you people destroy me some more? Is that what you're saying?
No.
That's what I'm doing here.
Will your book help children? Help parents?
I don't know whether it would help anyone. I've never thought about that.
Okay, this is interesting. So he asks him, will your book help anyone? And he wasn't looking to help anyone. It wasn't a self-help book, right? And then listen to what he says next, which is interesting.
You guys would have to show me what help is so I'd know what it is. You teach me, I'll learn. I'm just a little kid in mine.
You teach me what help is. And I go back, like when I heard that, I went back to this human being who was not only not given direction, but didn't have a father. his father. He was basically raised by the prisoners in the jail environment.
Yeah, he was never helped.
He
No.
has no idea what help is or what good help looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how would he even start to help someone when he's never been helped? He doesn't even know the understanding of it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Like, how could he go about helping people when no one's ever helped him before?
And I want to say something to John in chat. He said the prison interviews are much better because Charlie was medicated here. I plan on watching all of them. So I'm happy to know that. This was the earliest one I could find that was recorded. So that's why I started with this one. And they also talked a lot about, his background and stuff. Go ahead, Mel.
No, I was just gonna say, and we will keep going because this is just like the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. I want to watch
tippity
every
top.
interview, right? Because I don't know. This is the first one I've watched. So the next one, I want to see how similar they are.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it'd be interesting comparing this one to like one of his final ones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a little bit of the Diane Sawyer. I don't care for Diane Sawyer. I'm not a big Diane Sawyer fan. But that one was, they're all interesting. I can't lie. I haven't seen them all, but I can't wait to watch them, all the way through with you guys. John says, yay.
When you listen to him talk, I mean, he makes sense just in his own way of making sense.
Do you want to know something that I find absolutely crazy? Because I've seen people in chat saying it. They're like, he makes sense. I hate to say it, but I agree with them, or he makes sense. We have been so taught by everything we've read that we're afraid to align ourselves with him.
Yeah.
We are afraid to align ourselves with him in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. Yeah, I understand what he's talking about.
Right.
I don't want to say it.
I think we should learn from this, and every case should be gone through piece by piece from start to finish, and not just automatically jump to one conclusion because of media.
Especially something we saw when we were kids.
Yes.
If we just went through the same thing with Casey Anthony.
Yeah.
The same exact thing. How many people, after we went through it one by one, how many people changed their mind?
It's just not the popular opinion, nay. That's all. It's not something you want to say oh, I watched Charlie Manson's interviews and he really makes sense to me. My family would look at me like I need to be in a padded room. I mean, I'm not. It's just the way it is. And it's sad, but it's true.
I think unless you look into true crime cases and stuff and you really study them, other people don't really understand what you mean when you come from that position.
It's just keeping an open mind. People are very closed-minded, and you have to.
Yep. Okay, let's keep going.
See, I've been in jail 30-some years. I never lived in your world outside. I'm like a little kid out there.
Will your life story help somebody else to understand how to proceed?
If it was possible to present everything that's came down in the last few years in the proper perspective, it would be advantageous to other people, I would imagine. But if they had eyes in their head and they could see under the bed, they'd see that heads of lead and eyes of wood. It doesn't really matter because rubber fingers is taking the hand off into the universe anyway. The level of comprehension that you hold in your mind is only taught you by a school book that's in a sorority house. My father jumps off the Second World War in the ruptured ducks that were in the little pins and the buttons, and Section 8 in the nut wards, and all the people that have gone crazy.
Your father was crazy?
My father was all men that I've ever met in prison. Mel's one of my fathers. Creepy Carpus is another. I learned something from everyone. The captains, the wardens, I never missed anybody. I learned as much as I could from everybody I could get a hold of. And I've never met anybody that I couldn't learn something from. But now that I have learned what I've learned, I don't think you people want to know what I know. You wouldn't like it.
Why?
That right there,
Well,
Jay.
because it's not
Yeah, hold on.
very
Let me
nice.
pause it.
Well, why?
Him.
Because
Did you pause?
Mm-hmm.
Him saying that his father was everyone that he was in prison with, the captains, the
Every man. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's
That
very
is
telling.
so sad and so telling. And such a bad influence of who they need to talk to. I don't, it's just crazy to me. It's just crazy. How many, and you know, how many people and kids out there in this world go through this that we don't know and people just automatically assume.
Agreed.
because the people that you let run your lives aren't very nice. The people that govern you, the people that tell you people what to do, they're not good people.
Okay, this is where I was like, okay, I agree with him, because I do not think that the people that govern us care about us first and foremost. I don't believe that. I believe they're self-serving. And I think that because of what I see portrayed in the media, don't I? So this statement I agree with.
Let me change the subject for a minute. You've been back on a job out of segregation for how long now?
But see, and then he takes him off of it again. It's like he gets too deep, and then he jolts him back, and I hate that. That's why this interview frustrates me.
But now that I have learned what I've learned, I don't think you people want to know what I know. You wouldn't like it.
Why?
Well, because it's not very nice.
Well, why?
Because the people that you let run your lives aren't very nice. The people that govern you, the people that tell you people what to do, they're not good people.
Let me change the subject for a minute. You've been back on a job out of segregation for how long now?
I don't know. I got up and came out here today.
How long have you been working in the chapel?
I explained to you, I live one day at a time.
Right.
I don't have any other life outside one day at a time.
What brought you back into the mainline population?
What brought me back into the mainline? The preacher, with his love and respect and help, got me back on the main line.
After all that years of solitary, all those years of solitary and segregation, how is it?
Still, right now, I'm doing the same day I've always done. I've just had to bring it a long ways. But it's still today, and it's still a good day. And every day it gets a little better. No matter what you do to me.
Are you at peace with yourself?
Whatever that means, I never even thought about to ask myself if I was. I don't generally talk to myself. But I guess talking to yourself would be all right.
He just said to me, you know.
I love their edits too.
You want a sound check from us?
I'm all set.
I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
I want you to give this question a lot of consideration. You don't have to answer me now, but can you imagine what it would be like to be interrogated by the SS?
I don't know whether I could imagine it or not.
Think about it.
Well, I know what their tactics are. Okay. Can I answer it after the interview?
There's no doubt about it, is there?
Can I answer it after the interview?
Very serious, isn't it?
Sure it is. Can I answer you after the interview?
No, you don't have to answer me. You can just think about it
I will.
in your everyday
Okay.
doings.
Let's talk about Helter Skelter.
What's SF?
I think he means SS, like the Nazi SS. They're a specialized higher group in the Nazi rank.
So why did he ask him that question, do you think?
I don't know. That was kind of out of left field.
And he says it would be serious, wouldn't it? I didn't know what that meant, so I kind of put like a question mark there. That's weird. Okay, let's keep going. But I have a note here that I noted when I watched this, that the positivity that he like expresses when he talks about like having hope for things and stuff, like despite his childhood and despite the current situation of being, in a mental institution, prison, whatever. And could it be because the institution feels like home to him? Like, are we seeing him in his most comfortable place? There's no LSD, no pot. We're seeing kind of a raw Charlie, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he even said he should be where he is, that he's the most safest.
Because he feels safe. And it's mind blowing to think that this conversation, that the things that he's saying was 50 years ago, because I feel like this is something that would be on today.
Mm-hmm. It's sad to think that being in prison would make you think you were safe. Sad.
I know that would be your security, like your home feeling.
But there's guys that get out, after 30, 40 years, and they to re-socialize into normal society now. I mean, most of them end up unliving themselves or end up back in because they're just so used to that life.
It's really sad.
They can't handle being out.
And there is no help for reintegration back into society either. So
no, they just throw them into society and be like, you're on your own, and then hope for the best. And how many of people like him, who would get out have, like we're afraid to even say, oh yeah, I agree with some of the things he says. Can you imagine being his family member and, having to face that? That would be really hard too. Like it is. It's really deep, Renee. Jeannie Marie is screaming at me right now. She's really upset. Girlfriend, she says there is pot and LSD in the prison. Please don't be naive. I'm just saying, like, not like there was on the Spawn Ranch. He didn't have the, he doesn't have the LSD and the guitar and the girls that are loving all these songs and think he's cute and all this stuff.
U.S.C. paints you as a small would-be pop singer, as he describes it, of little talent. How do you react to that?
U.S.C. looks in the mirror.
Okay, now I thought that was such a... I mean, this reporter or journalist, whatever, has nothing positive to ask this man. I mean, seriously, he's really hitting all these sweet spots, isn't he?
He's
trying to get a reaction. Mm-hmm. He knows that this man wanted nothing more than a music deal. And really, for all intents and purposes, he wasn't bad.
No, he was good.
And I just feel like, I don't know, even if he had drugs in prison, it's not going to be the same as him being on the outside.
I mean, he was living with one of the Beach Boys and they were all doing drugs. Did they all punish him? I mean... Oh,
no. He was looked at as a victim of Charlie's.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm okay.
He's got zap powers to overmind even the Beach Boys.
Yeah, I mean, where do we hold like people accountable for their own actions as well? This would never fly these days. Never.
Oh, No.
And to be honest with you, like what happened at Waco is way worse than this, to be honest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There were children that were gassed and burned to death by our own government.
Well, and by their own leader, too.
Yeah.
That's
I just feel, but I feel like they had I mean, that's a whole nother show, which I love, Waco, but I do feel like they had the right to be in their home. They weren't bothering anyone on the outside. They were a threat to the government because they were, quote unquote, stockpiling weapons. But that I shame on the government for gassing with those little kids in there. They came out looking like seahorses from that tear gas.
I do believe in like the cult thing and that people do like, you know, try to control people, but everybody is responsible for themselves. It's your choice to believe what you want to believe and follow who you want to follow. But that doesn't mean you go kill people. Like that's your decision to make, to go kill somebody. Whether he told you to, or you felt you would impress him, that was a decision those people made. He wasn't there.
Nobody put a knife or a gun in their hands.
Ben Deo says Dennis Wilson was a victim. Them girls gave him the clap.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, wow. I agree with you, Gator. I do.
I mean, it's like the Daybells, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say cult mom, cult mom, cult mom. No, she was just a psycho, selfish, wanting to be no kids and wanted money and to just live her life. It has nothing to do with being in a cult. She's just a psycho that killed her children.
Plenty of people are in cults and they don't kill anyone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
As much as we hate cults.
Yeah, I do want to say though, Heather, while I got it on my brain, you jinxed me last night.
Uh-oh.
So you jinxed me when you said we won't have to talk about Scientology. Charles Manson's religious beliefs are based on, he studied. What did he study? What did he study, Heather J?
Dianetics.
Thank you. Oh Lord, I was like, she jinxed me on that one. That's so funny. All right, but that's all we're gonna mention about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not digging on that part.
No. You can just think
all right, I'm gonna continue
about it.
I will.
In your everyday doings.
Let's talk about Helter Skelter. U.S.C. paints you as a small would-be pop singer, as he describes it, of little talent. How do you react to that?
U.S.C. looks in the mirror every morning when he shaves. And that's the only person in U.S.C.'s world. Just him. Ask his wife. She knows it.
Ooh, I was like, damn, he burned his ass.
What about the accuracy of the book, though, Charlie?
But see the response you get, that hurts. That's a sweet spot for him.
The date's right and the name's right, but he had a million illusions that had nothing to do with my reality. He was only trying and convicting his own reality. Didn't have anything to do with me. I've already been through all these prisons.
But he did paint you as probably one of the most universally known persons
to who?
Around. To readers. People who read it.
And they believed it?
I don't know. What do you think?
Then they're not as good as what they read, are they?
But the book, how accurate or inaccurate is it?
I never read it.
Didn't you brief it one time?
I read parts of it.
Yeah. How did you find it?
Like I say, it was reflections of what he was thinking. It had nothing to do with me. Seriously, the Charlie Manson that you created, that's not me. That's only an illusion in your minds. It hasn't got anything to do with me.
What's the real Charlie Manson?
I haven't really been able to make him up. See, I've just been reborn again, see, and I'm learning now. I'm starting all over, and I'm learning. The preacher's teaching me.
I feel like, like he said earlier, he was like, I don't like look on the past, like I just start over. It's almost like he doesn't take into account anything. He just blanks it all out. And maybe that's like a coping mechanism.
I think that's why he constantly says, I live a
Day by
at
day.
a time, day by day. Every day is something new. Every day it's getting better. He doesn't want to reflect on all of that.
Yeah. Well, he says like he learns from his experiences and stuff. So he's learned from his past. He doesn't need to go back.
Yeah.
He just
Like
takes every day that comes.
the whole pain thing. He's like, I know pain. You don't have to teach me about pain. I know it. I lived it.
Right.
I wouldn't either.
Oh, hell no.
God, now when I have a bad day, I'm going to be like, shut up, Melissa. Things could be much worse.
Teachers teaching me. The counselors counseling me, and the doctors looking out after me. The guards don't bother me that much, and I don't bother them that much. They do their jobs and raise their kids, and I do my job and do what I do for my kids.
You know, there was a time a while back where when you got out into the main line, you ran into trouble. I remember Bobby Davis up at Folsom.
I ran into trouble?
Well, you got into trouble.
Who told you that? You see what I'm saying?
Did it happen? Did you fight?
Many things have happened. No, I didn't fight.
Where you fought? Where somebody come after you?
Where I fought? Sure, I've been fought many times.
Did somebody come after you?
Someone come after me? No, someone could come after me if they wanted to.
But did they?
No, they've always left me here. Nobody wanted me.
You haven't had any trouble on the outside?
On the outside where?
In prison.
In the prison, no. In the population, no. I get along with most of the convicts. The convicts that get along with themselves. There's much harmony in prison. More every day. There's much wisdom in the prison. More every day.
Getting back to the book, what is...
Okay, so I have some notes here on this. The part where he says, I get along with the convicts who get along with themselves. It's almost like, you know, I mean, you look at life on the inside versus life on the outside. Prison code of ethics, right? The prisoners that get along with themselves, he's cool with. Like, same thing for us, right? And then the two words that he uses to describe like the vibe of prison were harmony and wisdom. There's harmony and wisdom in prison. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. It's weird.
It just kind of shows how distorted his world actually was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all he knew.
Yeah, his safe zone.
Yep.
So the next part, I'm going to preface my notes because I put the reporter asked, what draws people to you? And at this point, I saw a nervous Charlie who starts to perform. And I think that he truly didn't know how to answer it because I don't think he truly understands how he got people to actually do what he said. Like, all he had to do was say something, and he's like, holy shit. Like, I don't think it took a lot of effort, or I don't think he was brainstorming. I think he was just being himself, and it happened. But
it was like his personality that drew them all in.
Yeah, well, he was managing to do it when he was like 6 years old, so it's kind of all he's known. People have done what he told them to do. He didn't really have to do much.
But then on the other hand, he was controlled in every, other way. In every aspect of his life, he was controlled in an institution setting.
And
so
I think he learned from that.
It's a combination of all of it,
Mm-hmm.
This magnetism that people keep referring to, and it's been beyond that. People writing you, wanting to meet you, your people that you had in the desert. What is the magnetism?
Why don't you answer that question?
I'm asking that question.
Well, can't you see?
Well, tell me, what is it?
Well, what do you think it is?
Do you know?
Do you know?
Don't play games with me.
It's no
Seriously.
game. I know. That's why. That's why you're asking me questions, and I'm not asking you questions.
Okay.
You see, I don't need to ask you questions. I already know.
Could you tell me?
Sure, I can tell you. Do you have the time?
I'm here.
Who would you like to start?
Well, what is it? Go ahead and tell me.
What is what? Are you secure?
Charlie.
The government is the United States. The government has never been more secure. Never been more secure than it is right now.
Hold it, bud. Seriously, I want to know. All right?
Okay.
What is it that draws people to you?
Music. Motion. Generating. Attention. Reality. I know.
I
When you
can't.
know.
That's what I was saying. He did not know how to answer that because he doesn't know what draws them to him. They just were drawn to him. I don't think he knows how to. I don't think he knows what. I will never forget seeing that dance or whatever the fuck it is when it was live. I remember my mom having it on in the living room, and I was like, "This dude's out of his freaking melon! Like he's crazy."
Oh my god!
But you know,
I think he knows exactly what draws people to him, though, and it's doing something that makes people stop and think, "Wait, what's going on here?"
Like that, he's fascinating. That he's entertaining.
Yeah. And so you want to watch him and be like, "Well, what are you doing?"
It's like a train wreck. You can't take your eyes off of it.
you don't know what's coming next. You know,
Right.
It makes you stop and pay attention.
Then you better stop trying, or you're gonna play crying. Stop trying, or you're gonna play crying. That's the game.
Little intermission music. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Music. Motion. Generating. Attention. Reality. I know. When you know, you just simply know. Jesus on that cross. You know he's there. Is he there? Is the cross there? I know the cross is there. You don't have to put me on the cross to witness for the cross. I can see the cross. Now what I'm trying to do is get back to earth so I can go out in the desert. I've already cleaned that thought up once. And you put another president in.
But you said
And every time I clean it up, you put another president in.
All right.
You know?
You said it's people who are in harmony with you. What do you mean by
The
that?
people that are in harmony with themselves, in the will of a child. The child has a will. You tell a child to come here, and the child will walk over. You tell him to sit down, and he'll sit down. He's just in the will of the child. God and his children are in the will of a child. It's just as simple as the Bible said that you must be as little children before you enter the kingdom of heaven. If the Christians had believed in the Bible, then we wouldn't have all this conflict. But evidently, the only ones that are in conflict now are the Christians. You know, like they don't seem to believe in their own God for some reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe they need to see him on the cross again. Or maybe they should pray for him to come out of the sky in a silver platter. Or, you know, I don't know. I'm just here, and you're there.
In the name of Jesus, Father God, Lord.
Okay. I was mind blown at this part.
Your reality, and where do you get your energy from? And where does your soul flow? And your thoughts? And how do you know you know? Unless you have to come and say, Charlie, how's the Dow Jones?
You read the Wall Street Journal?
Certainly I read the Wall Street Journal. I'm right at the top of your brain. And I'll read the Wall Street Journal until you let me walk out that door a free man.
All right, that blew my mind. We literally went from like this childlike manner, right, to this educated lifer, educated on the economy of all things.
Reading the Wall Street Journal.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never even read it.
Which has no effect on him as a lifer.
Yeah.
But he's watching everything. And he's very confident about it. I just saw that part. I wrote on my notes, I put mind blown with an exclamation point. Maybe I was stoned. No, I'm just kidding.
Or, I don't know. I'm just here, and you're there, and who is your reality, and where do you get your energy from, and where does your soul flow, and your thoughts, and how do you know you know? Unless you have to come and say, Charlie, how's the Dow Jones?
You read the Wall Street Journal?
Certainly I read the Wall Street Journal. I'm right at the top of your brain. And I'll read the Wall Street Journal until you let me walk out that door a free man. Or we'll just use Indian head pennies for earrings.
What if you did get a parole date?
Okay, what's the comment about the Indian head pennies? Does anybody know? What is the symbolism of that? Something to do with the stock market, the economy. What would be the symbolism? What was going on with monies? Or there's got to be some kind of reason he said that. Maybe Nay knows. I heard your Google fingers. Google fingers.
Loud, I'm sorry.
I know. It's perfect because you're Google fingers. That's your new name, Google fingers.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a glove he keeps slapping around?
He's got something in his hand. Oh, Callie Dime says Indian head pennies aren't worth anything.
Oh.
I wouldn't take the made-for-TV movie Mama Bird, Big Bird as like the true story, honestly.
Some Indian head pennies are worth money. I just looked one up. There's one that was from 1859 that's worth $70.
I think he was basically saying pennies. I mean, but why? I don't know. I'm just trying to figure that out. Pennies for earrings.
Yeah, I don't know.
Meaning usually wear gold earrings, right? Is that what he's talking about? People investing in the stock market and not in gold?
Say gold-plated Indian head pennies.
I just think he's comparing it with jewelry like gold.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But Jeannie Marie is giving us the 411 in chat because she wanted to run away to California in this day and age. She lived in this era. Yeah. So I'm really interested in her. She's halfway through a comment. I think he says that's all people care about now is money. That's what Nay said. Oh, Jeannie Marie said they were rare and we kept them. We saved them. Interesting. Jeannie.
Yeah, we did as kids
Thank
too.
you. Thank you for being here and thank you for chiming in because it's interesting that she lived through that exact era and, was the same age as the Manson girls.
What would you do?
Then I would give it some serious thought. I don't have room in my mind for could-bes. I have to deal in what is. I can't think about what I want. I have to deal with what I'm allowed to have.
What if you got a date?
If I got a date, then I would probably have a date.
Do you know what you'd want to do?
Yes, I have many plans. A lot of plans. I'd like to clean up the water. I'd like to go up in the mountains and start at the top of the mountains and clean the springs up, take all the pollution out of the water so I could drink it, clean up all the green things and pick up all the old beer cans and clean all the way to the ocean. And then maybe we might be able to save a little air and water for our children. Because I'm living in my child's world now. I'm working on his world. My world already went to the gas chamber.
What if you don't get a date?
If I don't get a date, then I won't have a date.
Have you thought about it then? I know you want to get a date, but what if you don't?
I gave it some thought, but not that much. I've gave it thought in relation that it's possible that they'll be pushed to make some sort of move to alleviate the pressure that they've created on themselves. If there's any way that I could help that, I would, then that way I could achieve what I'm after also. All I want is what the Constitution said I could have. The liberty and the right to look for my freedom the way I want. If you gave the Constitution to me like you said you were supposed to, then I wouldn't be here.
Okay, so what blew my mind about that, like, what if you get a parole date? And he's like, well, then I get a date. He doesn't really, I mean, he goes into the earthy stuff, you know, which is all fine and good. Oh, what are you going to do if you get out? You know, oh, I'm going to clean up the springs and I'm going to, you know, basically live off the land. But then he says, what will you do if you don't get a date? Have you thought about that? And it's like, he doesn't really want to imagine that. Like he just doesn't want to go there.
Yeah, it goes back to the whole thing of him just living each day as it comes. Like he doesn't want to think about things that might not happen.
Mm-hmm. Which is really interesting because, I mean, that kind of thinking, the what ifs is what causes a lot of anxiety and stress in people.
Yeah.
And I don't see him as an anxious or a stressed person.
Mm-mm.
He's very, and I think he really does live that one day at a time mentality. Like really lives it. I know we all say we should live our lives that way, but we don't.
Yeah, it's a really hard thing to do.
It really is. But I really think that this man woke up every morning and just lived that day because it was so routine and so structured.
Yeah, and I think it's a product of his past as well.
Mm-hmm.
Jeannie Marie said, my father and I had conversations to help me not be vulnerable to people like Charles Manson. See, that's the difference. You have, just like now, you have teens that run away or are lured away due to lack of parenting, lack of fathers in the household.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all these things matter. And Jeannie Marie, that made a difference in your life. That's your upbringing. Imagine a girl who didn't have that, who didn't have a father.
Or
and
a mother.
and you sit down with this guy, you're getting dad vibes. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's going to care for me. He's going to make sure I'm okay. I'm part of his family.
Mm-hmm.
Belonging. It's just like anything else. Everybody wants to belong to something.
Yeah.
That's why we're all here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally reality for everyone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been here the last 11 years. But if you let your politicians play like they're Christians and use your courtroom to further their own purposes, then all you're doing is big business with your own children's lives. And it really doesn't make sense to me. But I don't have the president's spot to make any change. If I had the control to make the change, I have the power to.
Oh, edit work. Sorry.
All right, OS.
Okay, I want to read my notes really quick from that. The politicians pretending to be Christians, whatever it was he said. This is what I wrote. Now, mind you, it was the middle of the night and I was listening to this, but because I was so fascinated. I wrote, some of his insight is fascinating just from the fact that he was raised by manipulators, thieves, killers, molesters, and God knows what else. To me, it's a little mind-bending that his mind goes to nature. Like the springs, the mountains, and the trees and the plants. Like, if you think about the life this guy has had, the fact that his mind goes to nature, and it could be the LSD and the peace, love, and all of that of the era. But it's amazing to me that he's not really negative. He's not mean-spirited. He's not negative. He's truthful. Not everything he says is positive, but it's also the truth. I've never seen him claim to be Jesus Christ. I've never even got that feeling so far. How about you guys?
No, I haven't gotten that feeling. But I think the whole trees and air and grass and all that nature, I think that's kind of a longing to be free. Even though he's comfortable where he is, I think he also really wants to be connected to nature. I think that when he did the LSD and all that stuff, I think that opened his mind to really enjoy being out
And it
there.
felt safe, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeannie Marie has another comment real quick. Hold on, hold that thought. She said, in her generation, there was a time before the Manson murders and after Charles and the murders. But the girls he manipulated came from upper and middle class families. And we're going to dig into every player involved. This is just our baseline. So go ahead. Was that Potato or Mal?
No, it was me.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, it's okay.
I'm sorry to cut off the royalty.
I mean, trying to hold on to the thought.
Okay,
in my
just
brain.
keep your pinky up, please.
The nature stuff. So when you're in nature, like, it's unquestioning. So no one's telling you what you're thinking or feeling is wrong. And that's what he had growing up. Like, he doesn't have to answer to anyone when he's in nature. He can feel what he's feeling and he can be how he is.
Freedom.
And no one's going to be like, well, you're wrong or whatever. He's out there
Judging.
free.
Yeah. It's kind of I hate to say it, I'm going to sound like a crazy person, but it's kind of a beautiful thing, honestly.
Well, when you think about when people go through difficult times and things, or if you're feeling stressed and anxious, everyone always says, well, get out in nature because it helps.
Mm-hmm.
And it does.
The same thing. Anxiety, even just now, even from COVID, what would they tell you if people are sitting inside being depressed or
Get
having,
outside.
Go outside.
Go for a walk.
Yeah.
And even for depression and things, like, it's get up, go outside, go for a walk. Like, just get out.
Mm-hmm.
Be in nature.
Nadie has to leave, but Nadie, thank you for being here and thank you for all of your insight. And we hope to see you tomorrow. And don't forget Heather J, Nadie, with the alien.
I think that grade, I don't know why it grayed out, but I think she did put Heather J, but it was a big gray square.
Oh, I can't see it on my end, on my thing, my program. Okay, so we've got about 10 more minutes. Let's see, I've got a page and a half of notes in the next 10 minutes.
See it come on and go off? Oh, yeah, I see it.
I'm also fascinated by their mics and their audio.
I might be able to set all the way down.
Here we go. Now he's in a short sleeve shirt.
You know, we were talking about this. The book Helter Skelter.
Right.
He's getting his reading spectacles. This is interesting, guys.
What's wrong with it?
Well, the book's all right. Got good paper and all in it. All this paper comes from trees. It's a shame to waste all your trees writing this trash for your children to be raised up in. Do you want your children to live according to the gospel of Helter Skelter?
Okay. Do you not find this absolutely interesting? Okay. So if this guy wanted to be this big prophet or whatever, wouldn't he love this book? Wouldn't he praise the book? Wouldn't he say, "Oh my God, I'm getting the attention I wanted"? But
Instead, it says you're wasting trees.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 50 years ago. Who talked about wasting trees? I mean, they were creating plastic. Plastic was the newest thing, and plastic ended up being the demise of our damn landfills. So, who is this guy? Like, how is he talking about trees? That shit didn't come until Earth Day, Arbor Day. Plant a tree every year. I mean, a lot of times I forget that this is 50 years ago.
I think outdoors was his element, being in the nature alone with not having people just always down him. But yeah,
But no one was talking about save the trees.
No. Except Charles Manson.
It's so weird to me. And then so my notes, the book became a Bible, right? Okay. So the book became a Bible for falsehoods. And he didn't even have to spread his word. We did it for him with this book. We, meaning society. The book was written, everybody bought it, and that spread the word of what we came to know as Charles Manson's word. And he's sitting here saying, this shit's garbage. If this was his Bible, why wouldn't he be like, this dude did a great job? He nailed it.
I think that was his point, though. Like, it didn't come from him. It was coming from someone else's perspective of what they thought he was thinking. So he's not going to like that book.
Well, and I think, too, that he's really driven the point home that everything you're getting didn't come from me.
Yeah.
Who were you getting that from? The DA? Who are you getting that from? The media, the newspaper, whatever.
And it's probably like you're focusing on this Helter Skelter stuff, but that wasn't even the thing for him.
Yeah, I don't know. This part just mind blew me. So this is really interesting, though, to pay attention to because he gives his insight on this book. Oh, they did. Jeannie Marie says hippies talked about these things all the time. I thought that shit didn't come till later. I knew they were like peace, love, earth. But I mean, if you look at how they left Woodstock, I wouldn't really call them greenies. I would, you know what I'm saying? Like they weren't exactly clean. But at any rate, let's keep going.
Where are the inaccuracies in it?
Well, it would take me as long as it took him to point them out. It took him 2 years in court to invent them. It would take me 2 years in court to uninvent them and redo them and show the proper perspective of it.
U.S.C.
Yeah. Helter Skelter simply means confusion. And if you don't see the confusion in the world, it's always been confusion in the world, then I guess you don't know what confusion means. But like, I get out of jail, and every time I get out of jail, society's moving a little faster, and they're doing crazier things. And I get out and I can never adjust to it outside because it's almost impossible to do anything right. Everything is wrong to somebody. I mean, you can't. You have to hide, and you know, day people and night people, and everybody all divided up. And
did they make up the evidence introduced in court?
What are day people and night people? And they're all divided up. What does that mean? Maybe Jeannie Marie knows.
The book Helter Skelter.
Right.
You said that there are a lot of things wrong.
Helter Skelter simply means confusion. And if you don't see the confusion in the world, it's always been confusion in the world, then I guess you don't know what confusion means. But like, I get out of jail, and every time I get out of jail, society's moving a little faster, and they're doing crazier things. And I get out and I can never adjust to it outside because it's almost impossible to do anything right. Everything is wrong to somebody. I mean, you can't. You have to hide, and you know, day people and night people, and everybody all divided up. And
did they make up the evidence introduced in court?
A big percentage of it they found and created themselves. They'd push a fingerprint together till it got to be, they justified it, and then they'd send it to another office and let them push it a little bit. Then another office, and they'd push it, and then finally they'd find another point till they finally come up with a fingerprint. Then the people that supposedly left the fingerprint has never lied to me, nor I to them, told me I wasn't even there in that particular portion of the crime. I was over in this particular portion of it.
Okay, wait. Christina said it means race. Do you guys think that's what he means by the dark and the light people mixing together? Maybe that is what he was talking about. Because you know what? He does talk at some point about the race wars. And I have to admit, I was completely ignorant to the race wars that went on in Detroit in the 60s. I had no idea until probably about 10 years ago. And I lived there. And those riots were horrible. Do you guys know anything about the Detroit riots? I think it was 68, 67.
I don't.
Yeah, they burned Detroit down pretty much.
Wow.
It was bad. There's a movie, I think it's on Netflix, called Detroit. It's called Detroit. I think it's on Netflix. It's about the riots. And he makes mention in another interview or something that he got out to these race wars. And that was why he talked to his people about race and these race wars that were coming. It wasn't because he was a racist. He just was talking about these things that were happening in society between, and we see it now. We have it now.
Say 50 years later, here we are.
Exactly. So I think that might be what he's talking about, because he did mention the race wars that were going on in the 60s. And a lot of people don't know about them. It's crazy. And I think that, I mean, I'm not trying to get political, but it is a part of our history. And it's a part of our history that I don't think people are really aware of. And the Detroit police were very crooked. And I don't think that people realize that, you know, down here in Florida, I know for a fact, I worked with a woman who grew up, who was a boomer. And she said when she was in, I think it was middle school, not like junior high, they were still segregated. They would go to a lake and swim, and the white kids or the black kids could not swim in the same lake. They still had the separate bathrooms. They had the separate drinking fountains. And this was in the freaking 60s, 70s.
Wow.
When I was a little kid, this was going on in mid-central Florida. Wauchula, Florida. Crazy. And I said to her, you know, she's telling me these stories. And I said, my God, Sue, I feel like I'm talking to someone who grew up 100 years ago. Up north, it wasn't like that in the 70s. Not in Michigan. But I was born after the race wars. I was born after those riots. And there is a lot. And it's crazy to think that the segregation was still going on in the 60s even. But it was. And I think people need to realize that. You know, I hate to get into race and stuff, but yeah, I hear so many people make ignorant comments like, oh, there's no slaves that are alive right now. Like, it's not even about that. I mean, it wasn't just slaves who have been oppressed. And that shit was going on, you know, into 5-6 years before I was born into this world. It's crazy to me. And to hear him have such insight on it back then it makes me want to learn more about that time and what really happened and what those riots were actually about. So I recommend that documentary called Detroit. It's really good.
Hey Jay,
I'm gonna look it up.
Christina in chat with the little sunflower said her dad was in prison with him and that he used to howl at like a wolf.
No way. Her dad was in prison with him?
She said my dad was in prison with him and he used to howl like a
Oh
wolf.
my gosh. Email me. That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Carol says she had no idea about racial division, etc. as a kid. I didn't either. I don't know. I would love to hear Charles Manson, like his outlook on right now. Like imagine him being alive right now.
Oh my gosh.
And like seeing everything how it is now. But really, and this is what I was saying earlier. If you go back in time and you look at, COVID, we all think it was like, oh my God, we're so fucking spoiled. We really are, man. We really are fucking spoiled. Because if you look at the plagues that have hit humanity over time, are you kidding me? We are so cushy. We are so cushy. And we think our times are bad. But when you look back, I look at downtown Detroit and they have like real footage in there from the riots that took place. And then I worked with a woman who was a CNA at the place I worked at. She grew up in downtown Detroit. During that era, she couldn't leave her house for 2 weeks. They were confined to their homes because it wasn't safe. There were fires burning everywhere. It was crazy.
That's scary.
Yeah, and I had no idea this happened. I didn't learn about that in school. And that's what I'm saying. And that's why he's saying, I didn't learn from your textbooks. I learned from experience. I learned on the inside. That's why he's so wise beyond his years. We were all sitting in a classroom being taught what they wanted us to learn. I lived 30 minutes from Detroit City, and I didn't learn about what happened to the black people in Detroit in the 60s. And I think that's wrong. Because I think that a lot of people would view the inner cities differently if they knew the history of the inner cities. These people didn't ask to live there like that. It wasn't always like that. Detroit was a beautiful city. It was booming. The economy was great. People were thriving. But I didn't learn about that in school. All I learned was that, Detroit was a place you don't want to go because it's scary because they're criminals, thugs, gangsters. It's just not fair. And you know what? I think that if anything, he's opened my mind to that, to going back and actually looking at this era and how it has a factor on where we are now.
In other words, all the little things that they come up with, like the trailer, the door from the trailer that's supposed to have had what we wrote on it.
Hold on. Denise, if you just got from what I just said that I'm believing what Charles Manson puts out, you need to be kind and rewind.
It's what they wrote on it, and then they burnt the ranch down to cover that up.
Okay, so this was a little tidbit he threw in, and this reporter quickly changed the subject. So he's saying that they wrote something more on the door, took the photos, then demolished it, or something along those lines. Listen, he's talking about either I don't know if he's talking about La Blanca or the Tate house, but he's saying that they changed it to have more sensationalism to it.
Tate House is still there.
Till it got to be, they justified it.
What?
You said they demolished it?
Demolished what?
Or is that what he was saying? Never mind. I must have misheard you. Sorry.
No, I think La Blanca. No, the Tate house was not. It was demolished and they rebuilt a new house.
Oh, okay.
So the original house is gone. I think that he's talking about the Tate house because they did tear that down and then someone built a brand new house there.
Okay.
Zach Fagan or whatever owns the one house. He bought it.
then to send it to another office and let them push it a little bit. Then another office, and they'd push it, and then finally they'd find another point till they finally come up with a fingerprint. Then the people that supposedly left the fingerprint has never lied to me, nor I to them, told me I wasn't even there in that particular portion of the crime. I was over in this particular portion of it. In other words, all the little things that they come up with, like the trailer, the door from the trailer that's supposed to have had what we wrote on it, is what they wrote on it, and then they burnt the ranch down to cover that up.
Oh, the ranch. Okay.
But in no way are you saying...
That's what it was. Supposedly they wrote something on a trailer at the ranch. I don't know what that's about, but I'm interested. Because he doesn't even care about that. The reporter asked something else.
In no way are you connected with either the Tate or La Bianca killings?
No, I'm not saying anything like that. I'm saying that if it would have come out in the courtroom, I would have explained what happened. All we wanted to do to start with was tell the truth, but the lawyers wouldn't let us because they wanted to sell it. We just wanted to tell the truth, but they didn't want the truth to come out because you couldn't write books with the truth. Couldn't make big money, couldn't sell all this madness, all the fear and the vicarious thrill for somebody.
Charlie, regardless of Helter Skelter, do you belong behind bars?
There's no behind bars.
Do you belong in prison?
There's no prison.
I love when he answers. I don't know why. I find that to be so funny. And I don't know, I have a Felicia cough, I guess, but it's called allergies. I don't know why I find that so funny, but that's why, you guys, like we were saying, he always has something to say. Because if he's not going to answer the question, he totally just repeats the question with a statement. Like, there are no prisons. And it's just like, and even the look on his face, you know, he's like kind of fucking with him. And it's just, this is just crazy to watch.
Anything like that. I'm saying that if it would have come out in the courtroom, I would have explained what happened. All we wanted to do to start with was tell the truth, but the lawyers wouldn't let us because they wanted to sell it. We just wanted to tell the truth, but they didn't want the truth to come out because you couldn't write books with the truth, couldn't make big money, couldn't sell all this madness, all the fear and the vicarious thrill for somebody.
Charlie, regardless of Helter Skelter, do you belong behind bars?
There's no behind bars.
Do you belong in prison?
There's no prison. It's only in your mind.
Do you belong in an incarcerated position?
There's no...
And do you notice that he says it all creepy and then he laughs? Like, I feel like it's like a performance. Like, it's only in your mind. And then he laughs. He's talking to this straight-laced, like, reporter. I don't know. And then, what was the other thing? Oh, I can't remember. Do you guys have anything before I continue? No.
No.
Such thing. There's only you denying my will. Whoever denies my will keeps me locked up here. If everybody agrees to let me go, then I'll walk out. Then I'll be free. And my chains are in everybody's mind. It's in their will. If you will me to be locked up, then I must stay locked up.
And I'll be sorry, I was on the
free. Then I'll be free. It's not as complicated to me as it is to you. You look at it through the books and the paperwork. I don't look at it that way. I look at it from the way I look at it. So, I'll ask you the same question. Do you think you deserve to be locked up somewhere?
I'm asking the questions in the interview.
I liked this part. I liked it when he kind of switched it back around on him. Let's watch that again.
At it that way. I look at it from the way I look at it. So, I'll ask you the same question. Do you think you deserve to be locked up somewhere?
I'm asking the questions in the interview. Can I do it?
Well, certainly, but you have to ask yourself at the same time.
I realize that.
You know, if justice came, where would we all be? We'd all be in some sort of trouble, wouldn't we? That's why we have Jesus. See, he takes up the slack.
Let me get back to the book for a minute. What do you think Mel is going to try to bring out on your life?
The years that we've known each other through the prisons, and the point of view that he has from the other side about someone that's went through a dilemma that he understands because he's been in many dilemmas of the same nature, maybe not as vast.
So there he's talking about that man that he knew, the one that sat down with this reporter that we watched. He wrote that book. So he wrote that book with Manson. He spent over 300 hours with him and wrote that book. And I think that would be a good one to read.
Yeah.
I'm not so much interested in Helter Skelter. I've never read it, but I've seen the little movie. But I'm more interested. I want to read that book.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that he spent that much time with him, I didn't realize that even existed.
But then I think that he wants everyone to know that I'm not really the guy that you think I am, but the guy that you made me.
How did we make you?
Well, you raised me from childhood.
How? In what respect are you?
Well, when you have a child that nobody wants, he's always sent to boys' school, orphanage, reform school, or someplace like that. And then they keep him till he gets to be an old man.
Were you beaten as a child?
That hasn't really got anything to do with anything.
Were you abused as a child?
Well, we're all abused now and then. That's not really an issue to anything.
What is
It made him really uncomfortable.
the issue?
Not your question.
All right, what is the gut issue?
In the book that he wants to do?
What is the gut issue?
Well, I think he just wants to put what he thinks is wrong right and give another point of view. And really, what I really think is, I think Mel's done just about everything he wants to do. And he don't have anything else to do. I think he just wants to do it just to be doing it, because it gives him something to do.
Hold it, bud.
Well, it would make sense. It's just another game to play, see?
I don't
He would give them immunity for burglaries or let them off some deals. If they stole a few cars, he wouldn't prosecute them if they told him something. And they'd lay in their cells just working, trying to think up something, anything they could think of to get up off that conviction where they wouldn't have to go to the penitentiary. Told him a lot of things, and most of the people I didn't even know. Linda Kasabian, for example, she'd only been at the ranch a couple weeks. I'd seen her maybe twice. You know, like I never paid that much attention to the people that came and went at that ranch. They just came and went as they chose.
So you're saying he's took a few pieces of truth
and missed it with his ability to play with words in colleges and books and things, and he wanted to impress someone with all the things he's learned, and he wanted some attention, and he wanted to be all the things in the movies, you know, so he played his part. And I wasn't allowed to play my part. I was only allowed to sit down and be the figure that was dragged off into the hole all the time.
So he's bitter, too, about this book. Maybe it is a little too close to the truth, because he seems a little bitter that he wasn't able to be a part of it. The other thing that I found really interesting was that he talks about these people that were there, those people that were coming and going from the ranch, and he's like, nah, I didn't really know her. I didn't really pay much attention to those people that came and went.
I don't believe that.
See, I kind of think that Charlie was way, way, way more important to them than they were to him. I think he was more self-absorbed and they were all about him. Like, they killed for him. He would not have killed for them.
Yeah, but I still think he would know who was hanging around him. I feel like he would have that self-awareness from being in prison all these years.
Well, like he said, that one girl was only there 2 days. That was involved. 2 days.
Right. Well, we've seen all these women, right? Charlie.
Yep.
His followers, right? And he's all like nonchalant. Like, he could give or take the ones who came and went, but he did invest in those few.
Mm-hmm.
But only a few, and mainly one.
Yep.
Interesting stuff. I mean, because those girls, I mean, they're walking down the hall. They've got X's on their foreheads. I mean, they're doing everything. And he did that on purpose because he knew the media was watching. They were sitting in front of the courthouse, sitting Indian style, waiting, just out there, whatever. And they show up the day after he has this X on his forehead, and they have the X. And he's showing that even though you've got me locked up, these girls still watch and do everything that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they crawled. It was great.
Yeah, they did.
But they cared more about him than he cared about them. Like, they're just all about him. And he's just like, what? Like, groovy. What's going on? Like, he talked about them role playing at the ranch in an interview I saw. I don't remember where it was, but he said that they would, take LSD and they would role play as each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you be Tex and you be Sadie and you be, and he goes, we got, I don't know if it was him or if it was Tex that said that. They didn't even know who they were anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that was him that said that.
Was it him?
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow. I mean, they were really, really, really drug induced.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had the money behind him because he said he had the people behind him. But that's another thing that's wrong with your court system. Your court system's not based on the will of the people, it's based on the will of the money. So your courts are not really protecting anything but the money. It doesn't have much concern for the people anymore.
I've got a curiosity. Can I ask you a question?
Is that not the truth? Weren't we just talking about like how much defense lawyers cost when we were talking about Casey?
Yeah, when you said Jose only charged her $5,000.
Yeah, and Maligator's like, that's a retainer.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
50 years ago.
I mean, think of these big shots lawyers. They're charging millions.
I know, and he was saying this 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. And people weren't outspoken like this then.
Years ago, and you changed it now to a swastika.
No, I never changed. It's been the same thing all the way along.
Wasn't it always an X?
No, it never was.
What's it stand for?
It stands for whatever I mean it to stand for, and whatever I make it stand for, and whatever I want it to stand for.
But you didn't one time say you were Xing yourself out?
No, that was your newspapers that gave you that.
What does it stand for you?
It stands for...
See, dude, he's twisting it right back around on him, saying, no, your newspapers gave you that. But really, he used the newspapers to get a message to his people, and he's showing them how he can manipulate their own system.
Things. It would take 2 or 3 weeks to explain all the things that I've built.
Can you give me an example?
In the image. Certainly, I can give you an example of the United States flag of America.
The swastika?
The rising sun in the German and the Japanese flag, the Star of David to the Israelis, whatever country or nation or people or cause has always had a symbol.
And that's your symbol?
That's mine. I put that there from 2 or 3 other symbols. I didn't want to put a Christian symbol, and I didn't want to put an anti-Christ symbol, and I didn't want to put a pro-communism, and I didn't want to put an anti-thermoflacaflop-flop-flop-dops and all that kind of stuff that you play.
Okay, I just feel like this dude was not racist. That's the vibe I get. I think that he really is not about all these labels and shit. And I mean, he said it. I was good with prisoners who were good to themselves. I was good with people who were in harmony with themselves. I might be wrong, and I'm definitely new to this whole Manson thing. So if you guys know different, tell me. But he seems to be pretty across the board. Like, if you're an asshole, you're an asshole.
Yeah, if you're cool, I'm cool. If you're a dick, well, guess what? I don't like you.
I mean, that's the vibe I got, but we could be off. We could be off base because we just haven't uncovered it. But
yeah, true.
I just feel like the way he just kind of like mocks all these titles, you know, I mean, what would he think now with pronouns and stuff? What would he be saying now about pronouns? I mean, he's a smart ass too.
Yeah, that Christina said he was incredibly smart and way before his time.
I agree.
It's your symbol.
That's mine. I put that there from 2 or 3 other symbols. I didn't want to put a Christian symbol, and I didn't want to put an anti-Christ symbol, and I didn't want to put a pro-communism, and I didn't want to put an anti-thermoflacaflop-flop-dops and all that kind of stuff that you play.
But it is a swastika. That would be Germany, wouldn't it?
No, that's not a Nazi. Hitler got that sign from mysticism and reversed it. He did the same thing, only he did it backwards. You know, it's the thought still here, just like the thought that he picked up was there when he picked it up. The thought has always been here. Been here since the pyramids have been here, since David and the giant, since the whole thing's always been here.
See, and I think people think, oh my God, he has a swastika on his forehead, like he's a Nazi. I really think he was playing off the symbol being like, it can mean whatever I want it to mean. Like, I don't know. I just feel like you're right. He was way ahead of his time because I think that people read too much into symbols sometimes. I think symbols and people can be like misunderstood by symbols if you don't know the person, you know? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, he said himself, like, his symbol means whatever he wants it to mean. So if you want to know what it means, maybe ask him.
And he made, you know, but he made a point, like, I didn't want a Christian one. I didn't want an anti-Christian one. I didn't want a communist one. I didn't want, you know, he didn't, I don't know. It's just.
Do you think he,
go ahead.
It's probably funny to him as well because people think that it was the Nazi symbol, but his is the other way around. Like, people don't even notice.
No, they don't. And
Yeah.
I don't think people even know that Hitler didn't come up with that symbol.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that.
And someone in chat said as well that it actually means well-being. So
But see, we weren't taught that. We were given, like he said, the textbooks in school that showed Hitler with this symbol, and then we see it on his forehead, and we don't look in between the lines.
Mm-mm.
But we don't have time to look in between the lines of everything. And I think people like him who are manipulators, they know that. They know that most people don't read between the lines of everything because we don't have time. We can't vet everything, you know? And it seems like a lot of the things that these master manipulators choose are things that the average person doesn't really think twice about. We see it, we learn it, we move on. It is what it is. It's like recognizing a Budweiser label. You know, it's the same thing. It's just something we just know. And there's just things that we don't think about that are just ingrained in us. And it makes me take a second thought at things. And it doesn't mean that, oh, I'm falling for what Manson thinks. It's just making me think twice. And there's nothing wrong with thinking twice.
I mean, and he really hated the prosecutor, and maybe he did it just to see that they do, like you said, to take a picture of it, and they all come forward that he was in prison, and still they wanted to honor him and sat outside, and they all did the same exact thing.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of proved a point.
Yeah. And you don't have to be out for them to want to be, you know.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, do you think he actually did it, like, for a purpose, as in a symbol, something he believed in, something he wanted? Or do you think he did it as a manipulation tactic to be like, hey, guess what? I still have control.
Total manipulation tactic.
Manipulation.
But I think to piss off the prosecutor, to show like he has control and he's not even out.
I don't think just the prosecutor. I think the entire media. I think he used the media at their own game by giving them this photo, or by giving them this symbol of him. There was no photos, I don't think, in the courtroom, was there? But anyways.
They snapped a picture of him coming down the hall with it.
Oh, did they? I thought that it was talked about. Well, whatever. I just feel like he used the media at their own game. Like, they're going to report about me, and then let's show them what these girls do. I mean, they would do anything he did, especially during that trial.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that were sitting out front.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, there's a guy like Magandhi that comes and picks it up. Or there's a guy like Paharasha Yogananda, or somebody coming out of some prison, or somebody doing something, and they pick it up for a while, and they carry it for a few steps, and then when they're gone, you say, oh, what a good guy he was. But while he's here, he's always just no good at all, you know.
Christina, I think you're so right. Christina said he scared everyone because he thought outside the box and was an intelligent hippie. People don't like being scared. That's ultimately why he was locked up for so long. I agree. Because he was too scary to let out. And that's what we all believed. Weird. That's the end of the interview. That's all she wrote. Yep. But that was all the same reporter. That was all that same guy. They just, I don't know if he came back different days, and because he called it the extended interview. So maybe it was edited and then they released that second part that was unedited. I'm not sure. Heaven Rain said the Time picture did it for her. They put him on the cover of Time.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I have it right here.
They wanted him to be scary.
And that was what they put on the cover of Time magazine. But they also did they did that to Timothy McVeigh as well. They put him on the cover of Time magazine before his trial and put the face of terror.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that was so wrong. And that was brought to my attention back in the 90s. That was when I started to kind of look into, like, you know, the conspiracy side of like government conspiracies and stuff like that. It was kind of like my first brush with it. And when it was pointed out to me that that was pre-trial, I was like, that's wrong.
Yeah, that's so wrong.
Oh, it was Life magazine. My bad. But yeah, I mean, it's not fair. And I just think that we've come a long way, even from the 90s, as far as people standing up for others' rights when it comes to, you know, being arrested. And I think we have a lot more proactive people that are more outspoken than we had back then. I mean, you look at the Menendez trial that happened in the early 90s, the second trial. Those boys were physically, mentally and sexually abused by their dad. Even his mother testified. No one testified to the fact that that dad was a nice guy. Not one person. The prosecution couldn't find anyone that liked him. And those boys would have never spent the life in prison these days if they were tried now. Never.
Nope. No way.
So I think even coming from the 90s, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but I think we feel like we haven't made any strides because we hear about, you know, people who have been on death row and they were innocent, but you got to remember those people were tried a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we are in a better place. We're just not really seeing the results of it because we're kind of in the place where the changes are coming. The changes are being made, I think. There's still a lot of corruption, but I do feel like we've made strides.
I see a lot of people saying he's a narcissist, but I don't get that from him.
Mm-mm.
I don't get narcissist. That wouldn't be a word I would use for him.
He would be talking himself up way more than he is. He downplays a lot.
Yeah, he would love every book that was written about him.
Yes.
Yeah.
He would love to see his name on every book. He would love to see his name on everything. And he was very critical of everything.
There's not one word I would use for him. I mean, there's probably some others, but not narcissist for sure.
And it honestly, it petrified me though, and we'll get to all of this, but that there's still people out there who believe Helter Skelter and still are his followers, even though he's dead. And it scares me because these women have done these interviews now where, oh, I'm changed and all this, that, and the other. I think that those women would say anything that they could to get out.
Yeah. I don't believe them for 1 second that they're changed.
And you know, it's scary to think there's a family out there waiting for them if they do get out. Mm-hmm. If they want to go down that same road that they were on when they went in prison. Because really, let's think about it. They go from doing LSD at the ranch, killing these people, having a hand in killing these people brutally, and then they go and they're born again. And then there's a family that cult is still on the outside carrying a torch for whatever they believed. I don't think that it would be hard for them to fall right back in it because we just talked about what do people do when they're incarcerated for a long time and they get out? They don't know what to do. But if that little family's there to pick them up, that's exactly where they'll go.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do we have?
Scary.
Very. Because these people have already killed people brutally. Mm-mm. You know, that's poor Stephen Parent. That one, horrible.
I know.
But, you know, we're all focused on this one man who wasn't even there. And we're talking about these girls being rehabilitated because he brainwashed them. No, just no. And they didn't do it just once. They did it the next night. Mm-hmm. That they didn't say, oh my God, I can't do that again. They went out the next night and then killed the LaBiancas. So I feel like we really have a lot of focus on the person that we really shouldn't be all that terrified of, because those girls really in that text, they have blood on their hands, literal blood on their hands. And I don't really care if he told them to write pigs on the wall. They did it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because back then it's like, why weren't they more accountable? Why was it so easy to just blame one guy instead of blaming them all? Now look at Lori and Chad. We're like, no, hell no. They both deserve the death penalty. We're not like, oh, Lori shouldn't. You know what I'm saying?
They both do.
So why didn't they think that then? Why didn't they think that these girls deserved as much punishment, if not more, than him?
I mean, and to kill a 8-month pregnant, I mean, you're a psycho.
And
they talk
put
about
your hands in someone's blood and draw on the wall.
And they talk
Warm
about
blood.
no
I mean,
accountability for millennials and stuff like that. Like, oh, these kids have no accountability. Where was the accountability for the parents of these girls and for them? Why weren't they on death row for their life? I mean, I know their convictions got overturned, but why are they even... Didn't one of them get out?
No. She
No.
got paroled, but the parole board agreed, but then I think the judge or somebody...
Okay, right. She almost got out.
No. Yeah, the governor said no.
But they do these cutesy interviews where they act like they're all sane and normal. And it's like, no. You have been in prison. You are not gonna... I don't know. I just don't think that you can trust that they are going to get out and not be dangerous to society. I think that everyone should be held accountable for their own actions. And I think it's absolutely insane that this guy got 9 life sentences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like he held a gun to their head. It's not like he was there waiting outside to make sure they did it.
He wasn't even there.
No.
He wasn't even there. So now I think what's happening is that with Lori and Chad, you know how we see like, oh, there's talk of Lori getting a plea deal? I don't know if you guys heard that or not.
Yeah.
But because she wasn't there. So they're learning, right? Just like with Casey Anthony, you don't go for the death penalty if you're not sure that you can get that conviction. So now we have talk of Lori getting a plea deal.
I think she's just pleading.
This 9 life sentence.
Lesser than Chad.
Do what?
I think she's just pleading because she wants lesser than Chad, but I don't think she's going to plea. I mean,
But Manson wasn't offered a plea. There was no talk of pleading Manson.
No.
And he wasn't there. That's what I'm saying. We are in such a different place.
Yeah.
Than we were then.
Mm-hmm.
This would not fly with like the mainstream people.
No.
Back then, no one wanted to speak up for this guy because they made him to be a lunatic. Look at his eyes. You're going to align yourself with that? Hells no. Especially when you're living in that 60s Leave It to Beaver time. I'm intrigued. I really am, because I think this is absolutely the media at its finest. It's like a change of the times, but it's not.
No, yeah. That's what I was just saying.
Yeah, it's almost like 50 years ago. That's why I said when I watch this and I hear and I uncover these things, I'm like, wow, it feels like this could be a current day thing. So I think that's why it's so intriguing for us. I don't think it's because we're crazy gals.
Nope.
Oh.
Look at your game, girl.
No follower. I just look at the bigger picture, and I think a lot of people need to sometimes just step back and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, like someone said in chat, I still think I don't like him, or they said I don't like him, but breaking down his words is super interesting at the very least.
It is. Getting into his mind at a slower pace.
I think trying to get it through any criminal's mind and understand what they were thinking, or what was going on, is super interesting, and this should happen more often.
I agree.
That's what I said. In every case, it shouldn't just be jump right from what the media says. That's it. You start from the beginning and go forward, but they're all so quick to just hurry up and get that conviction and not really yes, there are people that are just psychos that need to be in prison, but I just think they're so quick to get that conviction and no trial that I think sometimes they overjump.
I agree. All right, well, I will be live tomorrow. If you guys want to join, you are more than welcome, as usual. But I'm excited for part 2 and be looking for that event to go up. And I'm going to close it out with some Manson music instead of the usual dance it out. So
Dance it out to Manson.
Thank you, you guys. Thanks for sticking around, and thanks for talking me into finishing it.
Yeah.
All right. Love you guys.
Love
Bye.
you.
Thank
Night.
you. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, chat. Thank you, members, Roberters. Hold on. I'm not there yet. I don't want my music to jam in their ears. Hold on. Can you guys hear the music? You should mute and listen to it. It's going to put Potato to sleep.
I had to step outside for a cigarette, so I can't hear it.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Get some sleep, Tater. It's late.
I know.
There's a time for living.
Bye, guys.
The time keeps on flying. Think you're loving, baby, and all you're doing is crying. Can you feel? Ah, those feelings real. Look at your game, girl. Look at your game, girl. What a mad delusion. Living in that confusion, frustration and doubt. Can you ever live without the game? The sad, sad game. Mad game. Just to say your love's not enough.
In the name of Jesus, Father God, Lord.
You can tell those lies, baby, but you're only fooling you. Can you feel? Ah, those feelings real. Look at your game, girl. Oh, look at your game, girl. If you can't feel, and the feelings ain't real, then you better stop trying.